Hey, friends, and welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummell, and it's great to be here with you on another week of self discovery here. And today's topic is the care and maintenance of your creative ideas. And so it's important to know what to do when you get like a creative idea, a creative impulse, something coming from your genius, your purposeful expression, how to tend to it and make sure that it gets the best shot at you actually expressing it and it coming out fully. So one of the first things to say about it is that, in order to kind of allow it to have as much possibility in your life as possible, you have to grab a hold of it when it first comes. And so that means tuning into your creative impulses. Now, we are usually taught not to be impulsive, okay? So that's not what I'm talking about here. A creative impulse it goes something like this. If you, let's say, were a painter and you got an idea for an image, let's say you're painting a house, and here's your house, and you got the idea for a certain colored door on the front. And then if you thought about it for a second, you might change the color. But the first impulse is usually the most creative one and the one coming from your genius. So the impulse is, I'm going to go with this gray door and so forth. So you can see that the impulse is so important to pay attention to and to collect because it's kind of raw. It's not something you think about. It's not something that you consider for a long period of time. It's coming from something much deeper and much more connected to the original artistic or creative impulse that came from somewhere much deeper. The more we think about it, the less it's in touch with that original creative spark. So that's what we want to do, first of all. The second part of protecting and caring for your creative ideas is not to share them with other people too soon. Okay? You don't do a sketch of a painting or write a song or write your the first page of your novel and send it to somebody and say, "Hey, what do you think?" Because guess what? They're going to be, I don't know what this is. You might have a real good feeling about it, but if you can't present it in that way, you're going to get people discouraging you. And so don't share this stuff with people too soon because your creative spark is coming from your genius, your creative expressive center, and you don't even know what it is yet. You have to take a little while to get in touch with what actually wants to be created, what wants to be expressed. And so if you don't even know what it is yet, totally, you're not going to be able to explain it to someone else with a sense of satisfaction so that they can actually see what it is and be encouraging to you. So the first thing is to don't share with other people. Not yet. Not till it's more developed. Some people have projects that come out of them and they are kind of fully formed when they come out, but that's kind of rare. What mostly happens is there's a spark of interest, a spark of inspiration that comes from somewhere down deep. And then you have to kind of listen to it and nurture it as you go to see what that genius expression wants to say. And so that means spending time with it, spending time with that creative spark, that creative impulse to see how far it wants to go and not putting any kind of limitations on it or asking for other people's support at that point for your idea. The idea needs to be developed more, right? So I want to get you familiar with this idea of a retort, retort, and that means in the field of alchemy, it's a container. You've seen those glass beakers where the scientists are doing their experiments in and boiling things and smoke and all different things are coming out of it. The retort is a container, and without the container, in the alchemist's world, without a container for that change to take place, it can't happen. You have to have the container. The things need to stay in the container. So you have to have that retort. And so, same thing when you're gestating your creative ideas. Just like someone who is pregnant, the gestation period is a mysterious time. It's not open for public consumption. All manner of things are happening there to birth this child, but it's not for people to look inside there and see what's going on. It's kind of a private matter. That also is a container in which something is being created. Another type of container is one that I work with every day, and it's the therapeutic container. And that means whatever happens there in the therapeutic container is private. It's confidential. Nobody else gets to hear about it. So therefore, the client gets to be as open as possible, as open as they're comfortable of being, and therefore some deeper work gets to happen because the container, the safe space, the retort is set up. So when you're working with a creative impulse, an idea, a spark, some genius expression, you have to create that safe container for yourself. And whether that means you need to kind of lock yourself away, go out into the woods, take a trip, whatever it is for you. You know, you have that special room in your house, something where you kind of go away and you just be with the thing. You be with that expression, that spark, and see where it wants to lead you, right? So the whole point about having a container or a retort is that the idea has a place to gestate. It has a place to do its thing. And you're, instead of just letting it go, you're paying attention to it. You're paying attention to it as something that's bubbling up from you that wants to be out in the world, that wants to be expressed. You know, and not every idea is going to be a blockbuster movie or an amazing book or anything, but these ideas are there, these sparks of creativity are there for a purpose, for a reason. Even if it lasts a day, a week, a month, a year, it doesn't matter. It's not about doing magnificent works of art. This is about you as an expressive being expressing what you have within you. And so that's why it's just intrinsically important to be able to learn how to pay attention to that creative spark. I don't know why it is, but almost every time I take a shower, I'm in there and I get all these amazing ideas for my show, for books, workshops, interventions with clients. And I get them. I can barely, literally, sometimes I turn the shower off because I know the idea is going to go away, and I go and I record it somehow or write it down or something. You know, that's how important these things are, especially if you have a creative aspect to your life. You need to capture these creative impulses so that they don't just get ignored and kind of go away. They're there visiting you for a reason, and they want you to pay attention to them and to be able to, nurture them and let them bring out their best qualities. So it's really a deep listening when it comes to paying attention to creative ideas. It's a deep listening, and it's the ability to catch it and kind of let this thing grow, let it gestate, provide the environment for that idea to get bigger and bigger and get as big as it wants to get. So your creative ideas, tending to them, the care and maintenance of them is like tending to a plant in a garden. In the beginning, have you ever planted something and see the seed come out and this little sprout? It's very, very, very fragile. And you're like, well, I don't know about this thing. You know, and I don't know if you've planted vegetables, but almost a lot of vegetables when they're tiny, they all look the same. They're almost indistinguishable. You can't tell from the leaves what kind of plant it is. They all look kind of similar. But when they get bigger, wow, they become really unique and sometimes bizarre. You know, an eggplant tastes completely different than a radish. And, you know, they all look very, very similar in the beginning. So when they're very small. So when you're tending to your creative ideas, you pay attention to that time when they're just coming up, and your spaciousness, your attention, not trying to go to other people to get validation for this small idea, not spoiling it, asking for comments too soon, you know, that's the idea. So if you have this tiny little sprout and it looks the same as every other sprout, but you're excited about it because you know somehow it's an eggplant, and you're seeing this beautiful big black shiny fruit or vegetable happening in your mind. You're kind of seeing that. And then you go to another person, you say, hey, look at my eggplant, and they see this tiny little sprout. They're not going to be very excited about it. It's your vision, and you have to kind of work with it as long as it takes to get it to the point where at some point you might ask for other people's support, but it has to be large enough for and kind of process through you enough for other people to get it. Until then, just don't. So, like I said, I work with people all day long, every day, with these kind of issues, these creative impulses, and these creative expression issues as it comes to dealing with life purpose. And in that container between me as a therapist and the client, there is room for their ideas and for anything they're working on to have as much space as they need. So I'm going to play you a clip right now that kind of just shows you that dynamic between a therapist and a client in terms of the freedom that can come when you have the proper container for what you're trying to do. So you can see from this pretty famous scene, you might have seen it before, how the relationship in the container that was set up allows the Matt Damon character to open up, make a breakthrough. And without that container, that would have never happened, you know? So as a creative person, someone who is listening to their genius, it's important to know how to set up that container for yourself. It doesn't need another person. For this aspect, it just needs you to be focused in a way that provides the opportunity for your creativity to manifest itself in the best way. And so there's a few ways to do that, and there's a few guidelines to make that possible. And one of the ones I want to talk about right now is to find like-minded people. When you find people, let's say you're an astronomer and you love to go outside and you're always looking, you know where the planets are. When you see something new or something, you're looking for a discovery. Now, if you go and talk to your friend who's into kind of sports, or maybe building cabinets, and you talk to them about astronomy, they could care less. Your generativity around that issue is never going to be very much. You know, that one of the most common things that I hear in my therapy practice all the time is that, my wife doesn't support my interests, or my husband doesn't care about what I care about. And you know what? That's okay. Your spouse doesn't have to care about what you care about. Your spouse doesn't have to be excited necessarily about your genius expressions. But somebody does, and somebody will. Whenever you are in touch with what is happening in your genius, meaning your expressive self that comes from your deep connection to existence, somebody, a group of people will care about that. We're just not that different. Somebody's going to care about that. And to like care and take care of your creative ideas, you need to find those people. However you have to do it. Meetup group, Google search, whatever you have to do. You need to find those people who care about what you are saying and what you're doing and what you're expressing. When you do that, you will get the proper mirroring and feedback for what you're trying to do. If you don't find those people, it's always going to be like a wet blanket on your experience. It's going to be, well, yeah, that's kind of cool, And that's just not a place to put your creative, beautiful expression. So don't hang out with people who don't care about that. And, in terms of your spouse or your partner, we're not supposed to get everything from our partner. It's a little therapy here. You don't need everything from your partner. They're fine for whatever you're dealing with whatever you love about them. That's okay. If they're not the person to support this creative aspect, that's okay too. Find those people, because that's what's going to change your experience of what you're putting out there. You have something to say. There are people who want to hear it, see it, feel it, taste it. If you're cooking, whatever, there are people out there that want that. So that's one of the main things there. So besides that, when you are creating something, it's important for you just to be able to really, really, really deeply listen, because you don't know what this creation is going to be yet. So your genius has something in mind, and it's your job to just hear it out. Hear it out. Don't expect your idea and your creation to come out fully formed. It does happen. It's very rare. What's more likely is it'll come out in little bits, and you'll get little hints of it and little inklings, or an image or something will remind you of it. And it's calling you to turn around within and pay attention to it, so that you can finally see, okay, how far does this idea want to go? You pay attention to it and nurture it as it comes out. So one of the words that I love, the etymology of this word, education, literally means to lead out, to bring out. So back when that word started to form, educare, it meant to lead out the child's genius, to do whatever it takes to bring out what that child already has within them. And so that's exactly what we're talking about today. You need to lead out your creativity, help to bring it out. There are a lot of ways to stop it from happening. Like, there are shoulds. This is what it should be. It's not supposed to look like that. I don't know what it is. It's not strong enough. Those don't help to bring your genius out. What does help is deep listening, is not judging. What does help is to give it kind of free reign and time and space, and create a nice container for that to happen. All those things help. And this has to do with every aspect of how you create. There has to be some spaciousness in that safe container for this thing to stick its head out and say, hey, I'm here. This is what I want to be. So I'm going to read a story to you now. And this is about a real famous musician who, you'll hear the story. This is right along the lines of what we're talking about today. And I think you're going to enjoy this. So take a listen, and we will see you at the other side. Once there was a king who was a great lover of music. And living within his kingdom was a most famous and talented violinist whom the king desired to hear play. So the king sent his messengers to request that the musician come to his court and play for himself and his subjects. The king invites you to his royal concert hall to play, the messengers said. The musician replied, I don't care to come and play, so tell his majesty that I decline his offer. The messenger returned to the king with the musician's message. Not to be discouraged, the king sent the messengers back to the home of the musician with 3 chests filled with gold coins as payment for the musician's appearance. Once again, the musician said, thank his majesty for the offer, but my answer is still no. The messengers returned to the king with this unwelcome response from the musician. Now the king was outraged and said, I am his sovereign, and he must obey my command. And this time, instead of messengers, The king sent his soldiers to force the musician to come to the king's court. Unfazed, the musician said, "You may kill me if you like. I'm ready to die, but I still won't play." Rather than kill this famous musician, the soldiers returned to the king with the musician's message. As a final effort to get the musician to play, the king decided to make the trip himself to the musician's house to beg him to reconsider. As the king arrived with his royal retinue, the musician was already waiting outside for the king. The king said, "Please, maestro, will you come and play for your king and fellow citizens? Why do you deprive us of your celestial music?" The musician replies, "Since you have come here yourself to see me, I will indeed play for you and the people, but under one condition. You must post notices throughout the entire kingdom that during my concert, all those in attendance must keep completely still. They may not move their bodies in any way at all. And if they do, the punishment will be to have their head removed by the royal executioner." And although this condition set by the musician was very extreme, the king hesitantly decided to grant his wish, and the concert day was planned. Now, at the time of the concert was to commence, there were only a few dozen subjects in attendance along with the king. And as the musician began to play, the nearly empty amphitheater was filled with such heavenly music that the king was transported to another realm of beauty that he had previously not experienced. He looked around at the audience and he saw a woman sitting in the front row who was beginning to sway ever so slightly to the music. The gentle sway eventually gave way to her full body swaying and dancing to the sweet and luxurious sounds. And sadly, the king knew what he had to do. When the song had finished, the king stopped the concert, pulled the woman to the front of the stage, and ordered his royal executioner to bring his axe. "But what are you doing?" said the musician, apparently confused as to why the king was behaving in this way. "I'm only honoring your condition that prohibited people from moving during your concert on pain of death," the king said. "Oh, that was only to keep the people who don't really care about music out. My only interest right now is to play for those who love music so much that even the fear of death wouldn't keep them away. All of the people here who are willing to take that risk are the people I want to play for." And the musician played his sweet and intoxicating music for them all night long. I love that story. So the musician had found his people. He knew who he wanted to play for, and he found them, and his creation, his genius, his expression was shared, and it's a very, very fulfilling experience, and it wasn't wasted or misunderstood. So that's just kind of a beautiful thing, and that's a real blessing to be able to know who loves what you love. And it's okay if other people don't. That's what makes the world go round. Not everybody is going to love what you do or what you express. It just matters that you do express what you have within you to express, and that you don't stop it or stifle it or smother it along the way. That's all that's important here. On the other hand, besides not smothering it, when you express what you have to express within you from your genius, it is the most fulfilling thing because you're kind of doing what you're meant to be doing. That's part of your life purpose, is to express what you have within you. So let's take a minute and have a short commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to have a guided visualization that'll help you work through some of these ideas that we've been talking about today about expressing your creative impulses and how to care for them.
Ben Hummel's writing comes from a deep well of experience, practice, and wisdom. The Genius Way teaches you the life skills you need to find your own unique genius. Summoning Genius helps readers to turn a midlife crisis into an opportunity for personal growth. You can find Ben's books on thegeniusway.com, Amazon, and most online booksellers.
Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and then deeply exhale. Imagine that you're lying in your bed. It's early morning, the sun is streaming through your windows, and the new day has begun. As you rise to get out of bed, the first thing you see is that someone has left a cardboard box by the side of your bed with a note attached that says, "The first glimpse of your genius calling is inside. Take care of it." You kneel down and open the box and look inside. What do you see? What feelings are coming up for you around this fragile gift that you've been given? What other ideas are arising in you about how to express this calling? Now, as you're looking at your genius calling, you become aware of something that this calling needs from you right now. Take a moment to discover what that is. How do you feel about providing this care to your calling? As you're musing about this innate calling and expression of yours, someone or something barges into your bedroom uninvited and unannounced, wanting to see what's inside your box. How does this feel for you? Who or what has come into your space? What do you do to protect your fragile genius expression? After you successfully protect your gift, you place it in a safe container so that you can care for it. What does the container for this genius calling look like for you? This genius calling of yours is now set up with your protection. Remember to nurture and feed it every day until it's substantial enough to stand on its own. And now you're coming back into the present moment. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. So how was that creative visualization for you? Were you able to see different ways that you can care for and maintain your creative ideas, making space for them, holding a container for them, what your container looks like? I hope you pulled up something really good. So the next step we have to talk about with this topic of how to care for and maintain your creative ideas are what I call creatives boundaries. Boundaries for creatives. Okay? You are a creative person. Whether you believe it or not, by your nature, you are a creative person. And just take my word for it. So creative people need to have specific boundaries around the things that they create. I work with people all day long, helping them to create healthy boundaries for their relationships, their workplaces. Creative people need their own. And so let's just go through a few of them. Number one, and we talked about this a little bit before, don't share your idea too soon and don't share it with people who don't care. So the boundary around that is to know, I don't have this thing figured out yet. I don't have it fully fleshed out. I don't even know what it is yet. I'm still trying to figure out what it is. And in my uncertainty, I might be calling for other people's opinion to try and validate my idea or make it feel more real. But the boundary here is don't. I'm just telling you, don't. Let it develop. Let it gestate more. And certainly don't present your idea to somebody who you know damn well isn't going to care whether you did it or not. Or, that's a whole different thing. If you have a psychological disposition to keep going to the same person and keep getting the same unsatisfactory result, that's a different thing that needs to be worked on in therapy. But as a creative person, and the topic of today is, don't share it with people who don't care. That's like the worst thing you can do. So there's boundary number one. The second boundary I want to talk to you about is not judging your creative impulses and instincts. So our creativity coming from our genius is kind of like a wild thing. It's kind of like a wild plant. We don't know what it wants to be yet, right? We can't know. And the best things we don't know for a while. So just like you see an iceberg floating in the ocean, you know darn well there's a ton of it that you can't see beneath the surface. When you get a creative impulse, that's just the beginning. It's saying, hey, there's something here that's very, very deep. If you want to follow it, there's more and more and more here to express and pull out. If you take the time to just be there and not judge what it is, because it doesn't come out fully formed. It doesn't come out where it's just perfect and you don't have to do any work on it. Again, it might happen, very rare. So don't judge your creative impulses and instincts. Then the third boundary, acknowledge your doubts about it, but don't let them be the final word. So you're going to doubt yourself, It's a fallacy to think, oh, I never doubt myself. I don't doubt myself. Bullshit. Everybody doubts themselves. And that's a little part. It's a little internalized version of other people not appreciating what you have to offer and not encouraging you. We've internalized that through all the naysayers and all the kind of emotional stoppages we've had when we're trying to express something. Okay. And so the thing is, your doubts are going to be there. It's not that you won't have them. Look at them, listen to them, but don't let them be the final word in your expression, in your project, in whatever you're doing. Doubts are fine. Like, oh, you don't know how to do that. Okay, thank you for your opinion. And I'm going to keep going. Okay? I'm going to keep going anyway. Right? So doubts are okay. They just can't be the final word. There's more. After the doubt, how many inventions have you heard of where people have doubted it? This digital music isn't going to go anywhere. Sorry, it is. There's so many things that people, like the personal computer. Who needs that? Well, look at it. We've got it everywhere. Everyone has one. And it's just part of the culture now. So for your idea, you might have a doubt. Doesn't matter. Your doubt is not the last word. It doesn't get the last say. Don't let it be the last word. Keep going. Okay? Your ideas are worth it. They are not some contrivance from your mind. They are coming from someplace much deeper that wants to be expressed in the world. And that's the genius part of it. Genius means I've got something to say, and for some reason, the way that it comes through me is going to be somehow unique because I'm unique without having to try. And this genius expression wants to be out in the world. So that's our job. So those are the boundaries. Don't share it too soon or with people who don't care. Don't judge your creative impulses and instincts. Acknowledge your doubts, but don't let them be the final word. If you're a creative person, you probably already know how difficult it can be when you try and share your ideas with others. The crushing feeling of having the excitement of creating something important to you met with indifference or negativity can kill your project if you're not careful. So treat your initial ideas with great care, feeding and protecting them as they grow and develop until they're strong and substantial enough to stand on their own. Remember that it's an awesome responsibility to be entrusted with your ideas and creations, and it's important to learn how to tend to them and nurture them. So collect and protect your ideas as if they were made of gold. And know that the world needs what you're creating. The Genius Way is about giving your inborn callings and talents a way to come to the surface and to be expressed. For this, you only need to keep going, and keep going. And that's our show. I want to thank you guys for coming by this week. I'm really happy to spend this time with you. And I want to encourage you to write to me using thegeniusway.com if you have any questions or comments about the show and the material. And until next week, I want to invite you to stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember, your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummell. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummell on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummell.